Okay, so I'm doing this kind of out of order, but remember the ONN battery pack that I reviewed? I think it was in November of 2020, if I'm not mistaken. I've actually already discharged it and recharged it. Here it is almost 5 years later. And there is the model number WIA20B100008835. Input micro USB 5 volts 2 amps. Output USB A1 A2 5 volts 2.4 amps. Total output 4.8 amps max at 5 volts. Rated capacity 20,000 milliamp hours at 3.7 volts 74 watt hours. Actual capacity 12,000 milliamps at 5 volts. And that has to do with the conversion between 3.7 up to 5 volts. And then obviously charging is going to take much more than that. So let me show you this thing. There's some of the numbers right there. This is the ON battery pack that I picked up at Walmart for, I think it was about $13. Might have been $17, but like I said, I think it was November of 2020. Let me turn this thing on, and as you can maybe see, it is showing 100% right now. Of course, with the scan of the camera, it's very hard to see, but I can assure you it is illuminating all the segments for 100%. So I took this and I connected it to my USB analyzer and my dummy load, and I put a 2 amp load on it, and I ran it until it went absolutely dead to 0% here. And then I recharged it. So what I did is I monitored the discharge current, or the milliamp hour rating. So let me try to zoom in on this if I can see what's going on here. Unenhance, unenhance. Hello? What? Focus on this, ding dong. Is it still too far? Yeah, it's focusing on the reflections. Okay, focus on my finger. There you go. Let's go ahead and shut some lights off, make it easier to read. So this is the recharging 16,691 milliamp hours, or 88,951 milliwatt hours that it took to recharge this thing. Now, I can tell you on the discharge, it was over 12,000 milliamp hours at 5 volts, or I think it was like 4.9 something. But I've used this several times, and then I lost it. And then my wife is like, what is this? And I go, oh, that's the battery pack I've been looking for. Let me turn the lights back on. That I've been looking for years. I mean, I used it for probably 2, maybe 3 years, and it's been sitting idle. I thought it was in the center consoles of one of the cars, and I just couldn't find it. So I wanted to do a quick review on this. It's not going to be very quick, but so several of the commenters that have seen this video, and I'll try to put a link to the video right up here in the corner so everybody can watch it. Here it is, January 30th of 2025 right now. And like I said, I think I purchased this in November of 2020. So here it is in a few months later, basically, so that'd be 4 years and 1 month later, basically. I've used it. It's worked excellent. So several of the commenters said that they bought one of these things and it's like stuck at, I don't know, 17% or stuck at 84%. So after it had been sitting for probably about 3 years unused, I turned it on and it still said 100%. And so I didn't measure the charge current or the milliamp hour rating on it at that moment. But I did go ahead and just hook it up, and I just watched the current. It was about 1.7 amps charge current. And it took it probably 2 hours to recharge until it went down to, I think it's like 1 or 2 milliamps, which is what the LEDs draw when they're scanning right there. And I thought, how can it still be at 100% when it's charged at 1.7 amps at 5 volts for almost 2 hours? So I went ahead and I did a full discharge down to 0%. And then I did a full recharge up to 100%. But what was interesting is the display only showed, I think, 89%. And it was getting really late. It took over 10 hours to recharge this thing from 0 back to 100%. And I think it was pulling about 1.7 amps. You'll see it in the time-lapse video coming up, because I did time-lapse the ending portion of it, not the whole thing, obviously. And so I just set it aside, and it's like, it's getting late. I was working the night shift. It's getting early in the morning. I need to go to bed so I can go to work tomorrow night. So I just unplugged it, pushed it aside, and it's like, I'll deal with it at a later date. Well, I come in and I turn this thing back on the next day, and it's at 89% now, because it was at, I'm sorry, it was at 98%. And it was at 89 when I basically gave up on it. And so I plugged it back in to the analyzer right here, and it charged for probably 30 minutes or about that. And then it showed what it's showing right now, 100%. So if you've got one of these things and it only charges up to a certain amount, go ahead and discharge it all the way down to 0. Put some kind of a load on it, just whether it be your cell phone or an MP3 player or a light or a fan, whatever you can plug into these outlets that will keep this thing on. Discharge it to 0. Make sure you have a power supply that is capable of 5 volts output at 2 amps. So for instance, take a look at this little Samsung charger that I've got right here that probably won't even be able to focus on this thing because it's so tiny. So this has an output of, very hard to see, 5 volts, 1.0 amps. So you do not want to use a 1 amp output charger on this thing. You definitely want something that'll put out 2 amps. Now this is a weird hodgepodge charger that I've got over here. It's wrapped in tape because the case broke on it, but this thing is capable of like 3.5 amps at 5 volts. So I do use it for a lot of testing. So nevertheless, let's go ahead and get into it. I'll go ahead and put my regular intro on it that I would normally do, and then we'll do the time lapse, and we'll finish up with what it discharged at. And it was like 12,700 and something milliamp hours to discharge it. So it's far exceeding the 12,000 milliamp hour rating that this thing has. Actual capacity, 12,000 milliamp hour at 5 volts. So it is definitely exceeding that capacity. And like I said, when I went to recharge it, it was up in the 16,000 milliamp hour range, as you can see right there. 16,961 milliamp hours is what it took to recharge this thing. So I'm sorry for the long intro. It's 7 minutes into it already. And I wanted this to be kind of a short video, but obviously that's not going to happen. So everybody enjoy the rest of it. It's been like a week ago since I did this. I finally, I'm off the night shift and got a few days off. So yeah, there you go. All right, everybody, enjoy. All right, so do you remember, it's been a couple years ago, I did a review on the I think it was a 13,000 milliamp hour rated battery pack from Walmart for like 13 bucks. And there it is on, and obviously I can't read what's in here. Let me see if I can zoom in on it very slightly. Oh, that's too slightly. Rated capacity 20,000 milliamp hours at 3.7 volts, so the actual capacity will be less, 12,000 milliamp hour at 5 volts. So several people have contacted me saying that they have these things and they're having problems with them. So I thought I'd lost this one, and my wife found it the other day. So let me zoom in on the display right there. And it's really hard to see. I can't make out the red on it at all. Let me see if I can shut a couple of lights off. Come on, focus. There we go. And so as of right now, I'm at 11,255 milliamp hour of current draw out of the unit. And currently, if I can zoom in on that, it's very hard to see, but it is at 15%. Don't know why the camera can't capture it even in the low light, but I assure you it does say 15%. And so I did find this unit again, and I did charge it back up, and it is currently discharging, as you can see, at 2 amps exactly. It's rated at 2.4 amps per USB outlet. It does have 2 of those. And so I've got my load set at 2 amps, and the current meter is telling me 2 amps. And so we're at 11,000 milliamp hours. I'm just wondering what this thing's going to do. And then, of course, the fan does start and stop as it determines the heat sink is up to temperature or not. So I'm just going to let this thing completely discharge, and we'll see what it has to say, and then I'll recharge it once again. Give me one moment. Let me pause this and try to enable the slow shutter speed. Maybe you can actually see the display at that point. One moment. All right, well, I don't think that's going to make much of a difference. I did enable the auto low shutter or slow shutter speed, and it's currently showing 14% as the output on this unit. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this in the middle of the screen, and I'll zoom it in until it just fills it. And then as it becomes defocused, we'll back it off just a touch. I'm just going to enable the time-lapse recording of this unit, and we'll see when it actually expires. All right, well, it did finish up. Let's zoom out just a little tiny bit. And so let me go ahead and unplug the analyzer and the dummy load, and then we'll try to power it on and see if we see anything on the display, which is going to be very hard to see. Oh no, it is 0, 0, and it is flashing. So it does know it, it's dead. So that's good. Let me go ahead and connect the charger to it. We'll charge this thing up and see what it takes. First, I want to go ahead and just analyze what the analyzer had to say as far as discharge capability. One moment. Okay, so I do have this plugged into my other little USB power supply here, and taking a look at the numbers, 12,726 milliamp hours, and I believe it was only rated for 12,000, so it exceeded its ratings. Very impressive, as Todd from Project Farm would say. And yeah, 62,132 milliwatt hours capacity. So I'm going to reset this back to zeros, and we will plug the charger into it and see what it takes to refill this thing. Let me go ahead and connect the charger to it, and we'll charge this thing up. Let's take that a second time. Okay, so I do have this plugged into a different outlet right now. or different power supply, I should say. And it does show 12,726 milliamp hour output range, or output current. So that's, let's take that again.